I launched a true crime channel, only to discover haunted theater secrets. I never should have opened that door. It loomed in front of me, rusting and ancient, as if it existed on the brink of oblivion. Each time I grabbed the handle, a chill coursed through me, whispering warnings I couldn't shake. But curiosity is a stubborn beast. It drove me to explore. My name is Max. I'm just a guy with a passion for true crime. The thrill of untold stories, the rush of uncovering dark secrets, that's what I lived for. My friends knew me as the one who spent hours sifting through old police reports and dusty archives. I thought I knew fear. But nothing prepared me for what I was about to face. Behind the door lay the old theater, a long-abandoned place filled with eerie shadows. The air smelled of mildew and dust, a mix that curled inside my nostrils, triggering a sick sense of nostalgia. My heart raced. Goosebumps prickled my skin as I stepped into the suffocating darkness. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped. Cold seeped into my bones. That's when the whispers started. Soft, like the rustling of dead leaves, yet so close, I felt breath on my neck. I held my breath. My pulse hammered against my ribcage. I concentrated, straining to catch the words. They wove in and out, taunting, teasing. Were they there? Or had my mind begun to crumble under the weight of my own imagination? Then, a loud thud echoed from the back of the theater. I jumped. Heart racing, I turned, panic clawing at my throat. The shadows shifted, elongating ominously as a lingering whisper morphed into a chilling cry. My instincts screamed to flee, yet I stepped deeper inside. The thrill of the channel consumed my senses, pushing me forward, deeper into the dimness. I crept down the aisle. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet like the bones of the long-gone souls that once filled the seats. The air grew thicker, almost suffocating, as if the theater itself was alive and aware. I could hear it breathe, for every exhalation felt as though it was whispering my name. Then, something moved in my peripheral vision. A shadow flitted across the stage. I froze, my mouth dry as cotton. What was it? A figment of my imagination? Or something far worse? I took a shaky step forward, my fingers trembling as I fumbled for my phone, casting a flickering light into the abyss of the theater, but the beam of light only deepened the shadows. And that's when I saw a figure standing in the spotlight, staring straight at me. The scream caught in my throat as the lights flickered, and then the door slammed shut behind me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure on stage remained unmoving, its featureless form masked by shadows that danced around it like smoke. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the impossible sight before me. I struggled to remember when I'd last fact-checked the theater's history, its connection to missing persons and tragic stories. But those thoughts faded as the air felt thick, like parchment slowly absorbing ink, and the whispers grew louder, more desperate. Leave now, they urged, strident yet soft, echoing in my mind like a distorted reflection of my own thoughts. I took another hesitant step, but the figure seemed to eclipse the light, absorbing it into its darkness, and all around me, the temperature plummeted to an unbearable chill. No! I gasped, backing away, my pulse quickening as panic threatened to swallow me whole. The whispers morphed into a symphony of woe, twisting and weaving until they tangled into a single wailing cry. I swung the light around, desperate to banish the void that loomed nearer with every heartbeat. But the spotlight's glow revealed nothing but empty seats, shadows morphing where once there had been patrons. My hands shook, my grip faltered. I aimed the light towards the door, desperately trying to find a way out, but my escape was now barred by an unseen force. Please, I just want to, I started, but the word got caught, choking me with dread. The figure suddenly turned, a jagged outline shifting and swirling. It began to glide forward across the stage, closing the distance between us. Fear flooded my system, and I spun on my heels to flee. My heart pounded in my ears as I raced toward the door, only to find it sealed shut, slick and unyielding beneath my frantic palms. Powerless, I gazed back at the stage where the figure had stopped. It contorted, warping grotesquely as it morphed into indistinct shadows emerging of every tragedy this theater had witnessed. The whispers crescendoed, weaving tales of despair and fragmented lives. They clawed at my sanity, pulling memories I wished to forget into blinding clarity: lost siblings, betrayal, death. The lights flickered more violently now, sparking as if the very theater was in a battle against whatever sinister force inhabited it. "You shouldn't have come here," the voice rasped, clearer than before, echoing 1,000 nightmares of those who perished under this very roof. Suddenly, the lights stabilized, illuminating the theater in a sickly hue. There, on the edge of the stage, was more than just the figure. It was the face of a girl, charred and sorrowful, her eyes wide with fear and the weight of countless regrets. "Find them," she mouthed, though no sound emerged from those cracked lips. Behind her, the curtain began to sway, an unseen force pulling it back, revealing numbers scrawled in red paint that I knew all too well, the missing people listed from the cold case files I'd pieced together. They danced across the stage, their names alive and restless, flickering like dying flames. I stumbled back, breathless, the oppressive air suffocating me, and just as my mind screamed to cease the horror, the light flickered again and then it went dark. In that moment, suffocated by nothingness, I could still hear the whispers gains led to anguish, stories of loss rising to a cacophony around me. My heart raced as I strained to find the door in utter blackness, a panic bubbling up. But suddenly, the anguished cries transformed into laughter, sharp, dissonant, and echoing. I felt something behind me, a presence more chilling than any before. I wheeled around, illuminating nothing but the void. The laughter echoed sinisterly before being replaced by a piercing silence. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping, slow yet insistent, like fingernails scraping against wood. It came from above. Eyes wide with terror, I turned my light toward the ceiling. "Max," a voice whispered, a chilling concoction of innocence and malice. And then the floor beneath me began to tremble, the specters of the lost rising from their seats, shadows stretching, coiling around me like vines closing in. I could no longer see the stage, only the swarm of dark entities drawing near, shapes both familiar and twisted, faces I recognized yet could never comprehend. "Help us," they chorus in a haunting echo. I staggered back as the walls seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, threatening to engulf me. Then, faster than I could react, an icy hand gripped my wrist, dragging me down. "Find them," echoed everywhere, a command and a curse, a promise and a warning. Just as I felt myself being yanked into the abyss, the lights blazed back to life, illuminating a mirror on the wall that I had overlooked. Behind me, my own reflection was gone. Instead, standing there with hollow eyes, was the girl, grinning, her bloodied and battered fingers beckoning me closer. And before I could scream, the mirror shattered in a flurry of glass, and I was pulled into the darkness, where only screams remained. I fell through the shards of glass, the world collapsing around me in spirals of terror. With a violent thud, I landed in a desolate place, a cracked and creaking corridor that echoed with whispers of dread. The air tasted metallic, the kind that conjured images of blood and fear, drenching the memories of this forsaken theater. "Max," the voice lingered, curling around my name like smoke. I scrambled to my feet, dust swirling like forgotten phantoms. Shadows clung to the walls, twisting into grotesque representations of grief and torment. The very grounding beneath me trembled, as if the theater hungered for life, for stories left untold. Moving down the hallway, I stumbled upon a series of doorways, each more sinister than the last. I could hear them now, soft weeping, low and unceasing. "Help us," they pleaded, a chorus of suffering pulling me toward the nearest door. With trembling fingers, I twisted the knob. The door creaked open, surprisingly light as it revealed a small, dim room lined with photographs. Faces of the missing adorned the walls like jagged reminders of a bitter past. The air was suffocating, thick with despair. Each visage stared blankly, their empty eyes locking onto mine, piercing through the veil of despair. I stepped inside, the door slamming shut behind me, echoing a chilling finality. Time felt suspended as the lights flashed, revealing a scene long forgotten. The much-discussed final act of the infamous tragedy that had haunted this theater unfolded before my eyes. Curtain calls that had taken on a new element of horror, bodies claiming the stage far before their time. The photographs began to shake, and each face contorted, mouths agape in silent screams. I stumbled back, clutching my head as memories surged to the surface when I had researched each case, feeling only detachment. Now, I was anchored in their sorrow, trapped between dimensions of anguish. Max, the voice was coming from a corner, deeper and more haunting. I squinted through the gloom, spotting something on the floor. The girl again, but now she was not alone. Around her, 5 children, their limbs bent grotesquely, beckoned gently, the very picture of innocence draped in the shrouds of darkness. Find them, help us, who are you? What do you want? I gasped, my heart racing as their faces morphed into the missing figures from the photographs. Us. They cried in unison before dissolving into the floor like smoke, leaving a gaping emptiness where they once stood. A shuddering chill swept through the room as an icy draft whispered secrets long buried. Suddenly, the walls began to writhe, twisting as if alive. The photographs rearranged themselves, sliding down as if the faces were crawling, fighting to break free from their capture. A picture fell, smashing on the ground, revealing a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside lay a battered notebook, its pages yellowed and worn, filled with frantic scrawls, accounts of the theater's history interlaced with despair. Before I could reach for it, the door swung open, a beam of light illuminating the spectral forms of the children once more. You need to listen, Max. We can't stay here. They shrieked, faces contorted in panic. They're coming for you. I stumbled forward only to be met with a wave of whispers flooding my ears, rising to a deafening crescendo. I grasped the notebook, but the moment I touched it, black tendrils shot from the walls, wrapping around my arms, pulling me backward toward the door, which had now widened into a gaping maw of darkness. No. Let me go. I screamed, but the echoes of the theater swallowed my pleas. I was no longer in control. The vortex of shadows thrust me back into the hallway, where the walls pulsed with angry red. Max. The children's faces filled my mind, desperate, pleading for a resolution. Find them. Break the cycle. The ground trembled violently, sending me crashing against the wall. I could see the mirror in the distance, shards still shimmering with remnants of the past. But before I could make my way toward it, the temperature dropped sharply, and I was enveloped in deafening silence. Then, slowly, I realized I wasn't alone. Standing at the end of the corridor was a figure cloaked in darkness, a familiar contour that sent chills racing down my spine. It stepped closer, revealing the outline of a face I never thought I would see again, a face twisted into a menacing grin. Max. It echoed, the very fabric of my being shattering at the recognition. Just as I opened my mouth to scream, the lights flickered off once more, plunging the corridor into darkness, and the realization sank in. The theater had prepared a new stage for an old story, and I had become a pivotal character in their tragic sequel. The silence wrapped around me like a coffin, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart, a desperate drumbeat demanding clarity. The figure remained in the shadows, the grin widening as it stepped further into the light, revealing familiar features that sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. It was Jenna, my sister, lost for 3 agonizing years. Her eyes, once bright with confidence, now glowed an unnatural shade of pale, clouded by an abyss that seemed to stretch endlessly behind her. Come closer, Max, she beckoned, a voice that should have been comforting now laced with an unsettling longing that made my skin crawl. I've missed you so much. No, you can't be real, I choked, each word pulling in tighter knots of disbelief. You disappeared. You were gone. Her fingers stretched out, elongated shadows behind her as they twirled and coiled as though beckoning other entities to join. I've come to show you what I found. What they're hiding, Max. You can't leave. You have to help me finish it. Suddenly, the corridor warped, the walls buckled inward, the whispers rising once more, an insidious buzz that coalesced into a chant, repeating the same phrase, help us. Help us. I wanted to run, to push past her and escape, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, bound by a force I could not comprehend. Don't you want to know the truth, dear brother? Jenna's voice turned soft, slippery like oil. Those children, they came to me, too. When the lights went out and the curtain fell, they revealed everything. In a swift motion, she turned and gestured down the unsettling corridor where we had come. I followed her gaze to a metallic door, slightly ajar, pulsating with luminescent energy. An ancient sense of dread coiled in my stomach. Something was waiting there, lurking behind that door, ready to be unleashed. Come with me, she urged, and for a fleeting second, I could almost feel her warmth, a reminder of the sister who once embraced me in our childhood home. But that warmth quickly morphed into ice and desolation, for a darkness clung to her that felt alive. Max, the voices of the children cascaded again from the depths, mingling with Jenna's hollow echo. She lies. Rescue us. Break the cycle before it's too late. Wake up. I shouted, pushing past the suffocating doubt creeping over my resolve. You're not Jenna. The words shot into the stillness, severing the connection between us. Her expression shifted, the gleam in her eyes fading rapidly. You don't understand. She hissed, a serpent's tongue flicking out from behind her teeth. You have no idea what they want. You can't leave this place. You are part of it now. With my words still hanging defiantly in the air, a cacophony erupted as the lights flickered back on, revealing blood-stained footprints leading into the door behind her. The laughter of disembodied children swirled around, taunting, mocking. The air felt heavy with something that pressed against my chest, forcing me to breathe shallowly, warmth transforming into ice as memories of Jenna festered in the recesses of my mind. In one last desperate pull, I glanced behind me and reached for the cracked mirror, but a ground tremor threw me off balance, my body colliding against the wall. Max, you can't leave me. Her voice shattered fiercely, resonating through the corridor with a visceral agony. The walls began to bleed, crimson seeping through the cracked paint, and a monstrous roar issued from the depths of the theater, shaking the very foundations beneath my feet. The metallic door stood ajar, shadows boiling inside it, insatiable creatures waiting eagerly, drunken with anticipation. Suddenly, I felt its presence crawling at my back, a frigid grip tightening around my shoulders. The panic rose to a fever pitch, and I whipped around to see nothing, only the swirling dark clashing against the pulse of the theater, vibrating with a life of its own. But Jenna was still there, her face mottled with shadows, her voice a wretched whisper beneath the howling chaos. You have to make a choice, Max. Join me, or they will take you. As the laughter crescendoed and a sinister fog poured into the corridor, I realized there was no way to discern reality from nightmare. The path to save her, the path to save myself both converged into the same eerie exit. All that lingered were the children's cries entangled in my soul, clawing upward. The door behind Jenna swung open fully, revealing an inky void. It beckoned. It called. Choose now, or lose everything. Jenna growled, eyes swirling black and red, with dread wrapping around my heart. I took a trembling step backward into the unknown, the threshold to oblivion yawning wide. Just as I felt my foot leave solid ground, the world shattered around me, and I had no choice but to plunge headfirst into chaos. The darkness swallowed me whole, a viscous matter that clung to my skin like tendrils of ice. My screams echoed in the void, swallowed by an abyss where time ceased to exist, and I was left floating in an expanse of pure terror. The pulsing whispers and familiar laughter echoed back, reverberating through the silence. I landed on a cold, hard surface that vibrated beneath me, and the air thickened with the rancid odor of decay. As I struggled to rise, the atmosphere pressed down like a shroud of death. I blinked against the harsh reality that broke through the murkiness, revealing a grotesque scene before me. Scattered remnants of a once vibrant theater lay strewn in disarray, illuminated by a flickering overhead light that sputtered like a dying ember. Rows of tattered seats stared back at me, some overturned in a frantic escape, others splintered and coated in an unsettling layer of dust that seemed to have absorbed years of silence. The walls oozed with condensation, forming rivulets of dark liquid that coursed down like the broken dreams of the theater's previous inhabitants. Suddenly, I heard the softest of cries, a whisper so faint it made the hairs on my neck stand straight. Help us, it echoed with a childlike timbre. I felt an instinctual pull toward the sound, an unrelenting lure that moved my feet forward though my mind screamed for me to flee. As I rounded the barricade of jagged seats, I found myself staring into the depths of the stage, now an ominous chasm. The red curtains hung limp and frayed, like the sinewy fingers of a long-dead specter reaching for help. It beckoned, holding the promise of truth, yet the rancid bile of dread clawed up my throat as I realized something was slumped in the shadows. A small figure lay sprawled on the stage, one that made my heart seize with a familiar pang. It was a boy, perhaps no older than 7, with pallid skin and sunken eyes that glinted beneath the sallow light. "Please," he whispered again, his voice barely more than a ghost. "They want to let me go. You have to find them, you have to help us." "Who?" I gasped, scrambling closer through the debris. "Who are you? Where is Jenna?" His skeletal form shuddered, and he lifted an emaciated arm, pointing toward the stage's rear exit where darkness pooled like oil. "They're waiting, Max. They want you to join. To become one of them." The words crawled under my skin, the realization sinking in that the child must be one of the lost souls Jenna spoke of, whisked away into the shadows and longing for release. I stammered, struggling to comprehend the immense weight of his request. "I can't. I want to join them. I'm here to find Jenna. You have to help me find her." The boy shivered and his eyes seemed to dim. "Jenna is already inside. The door you opened, it binds us together. She's part of them now. You're all that's left." A scream erupted from the shadows, a monstrous wail of agony that reverberated through the hollow theater, surrounding me with a cacophony of despair. I turned toward the sound, heart racing, and saw them, shapeless figures emerging from the void, their forms writhing and grotesque, with hollow mouths stretching open in a silent scream. "And no," I gasped, stumbling back. The once child's voice pierced through the terror. "Don't let them take you." Suddenly, the figures began to converge towards me, moving with an insatiable hunger. They clawed at the thin air as if grasping for something deemed precious, something in me. "Join us," their voices hissed, mocking and eerily familiar, as though Jenna's laughter was twisted into these terrible sounds. "No." I screamed again, a surge of raw panic propelling me forward. I had to escape, had to find Jenna before I became nothing but a hollow shadow, lost among the echoes of the theater. Behind me, the boy's face twisted in sorrow, a mere flicker before I turned my back completely on him. As I raced toward what I hoped would be a way out, the tendrils of dark energy closed in behind me, wrapping around my limbs, pulling me back into their madness. I could feel them crawling across my skin now, grasping, gnashing, their bitter whispers clawing at my sanity. Then, just as I thought I would be consumed, a jarring burst of light disrupted the shrouded darkness. It illuminated a grotesque truth. My reflection in a cracked mirror stared back at me, only it wasn't just me, it was Jenna, her ghostly visage twisted in anguish. "Max, save me," she cried, her face merging with mine. I was losing myself again, losing everything. Realizing I had to act, I extended my hand toward the broken mirror, searching for the anchor to pull her back from the unsettling chasm where she was trapped. "Jenna. Fight it. We need to break this hold." But the mirror didn't reflect her. Instead, it showed the twisted faces of lost children, mouths screaming silently, as each shriek clawed at my soul, demanding I join the choir of despair. Their collective longing was palpable, reverberating in a dissonant hum that filled the air. The theater shuddered, and the ceiling started to crack, plaster raining down like a storm of sorrow. "Max." Jenna's voice broke through again, more desperate, filled with sorrow as the shadows threatened to engulf everything. Just as I felt the edges of reality fraying away into madness, I knew I was at a crossroads. Would I face the unknown horrors and descend further into this dark theater of secrets? Or would I shatter the mirror and expose the truth, regardless of the consequences? As I reached out for the glass, I felt chilling fingers tighten around my wrist, pulling me back, pulling me toward the void. "Join us," the whispers sang, and the stage trembled violently. With one heartbeat separating decision from demise, I made my choice. But the moment I shattered the mirror, nothing could prepare me for what emerged from the fragments, a torrent of darkness that roared to life, and the screams of those trapped within grew louder, drowning out even my own thoughts. In that instant, everything exploded into chaos, and I found myself spiraling down into something far worse than I could ever imagine. The theater collapsed beneath me as the darkness swallowed my screams, plunging me into a turbulent realm of twisted realities. When I landed, I was no longer standing on solid ground. Instead, I found myself trapped in a space that floated somewhere between dream and nightmare, where time twisted like the gnarled roots of a malevolent tree. My heart raced as I looked around, haunted by shadows that whispered my name in unholy tones, their calling echoing through the air like a haunting symphony of despair that I gasped, panic rising in my throat as I stepped into a dimly lit corridor lined with cracked plaster and peeling wallpaper that hung like shrouds, carrying an eerie scent of mildew and something far more sinister. It was as if the corridor had absorbed the memories of those long-lost movements. Shadows twisted and writhed at the edges of my vision, a cacophony of lost souls trapped beneath the weight of their own torment. A sudden chill snaked down my spine, and I turned to see children's faces peering through the cracked walls, their hollowed eyes framing expressions of anguish. "Help us," Max, a girl's voice wafted through the air, soft and insistent, tapping into every recess of my guilt. I backed away, heart hammering, but a sharp tug on my sleeve halted my retreat. That I whipped around and was confronted by the boy from the stage, the one who had called out for help. "You're not safe here," he said, his voice trembling as he glanced back toward the shadows. "They are coming for you. You have to leave, before it's too late." "Where's Jenna? Where is she?" I demanded, desperate to know if I was already too late. The boy's eyes widened, filled with dread. "To find her, you must understand what she has become. What this place truly is. You're trapped in their web, drawn by the light, by her pain." He pointed further down the corridor, where the air shimmered like heat on asphalt. "You need to remember the past, Max." With a heavy heart, I remembered the stories Jenna told, of lost children who had vanished without a trace, drawn into the theater's cursed enchantment. Their lives, entwined with the whispers of the stage, trapped forever within its haunting embrace. Fear twisted my gut. What do I need to do? Face the echoes, they guard the door to the truth, the boy said. He gestured toward the shadows, where a doorway yawned open, blackness spilling forth like a hungry beast. I hesitated, the allure of the darkness shimmering with promises of knowledge and peril alike. But what if I don't like what I find? "The truth is the only way out," he insisted, his gaze dropping as if haunted by the memories of their suffering. "It all leads back to you and Jenna. The sacrifice has been made, and you must confront it to save her." As the shadows stirred ominously around us, I struggled forward, drawn to the doorway's sinister promise. I stepped into the black, where a cacophony of whispers erupted, each voice layering itself atop the last, creating an oppressive tapestry of memories and emotions. "Remember, remember," they intoned, throbbing through the air, echoing with familiar laughter and distant cries. My heart clenched as I caught glimpses of the faces like jigsaw pieces never meant to fit together. Suddenly, the corridor twisted, morphing into vivid recollections of my childhood and the nights spent in this cursed theater with Jenna, each memory more vivid than the last. The laughter of innocent children echoed around me, juxtaposed against the wailing and howling of those tormented by their fates. I saw her, framed in a memory of joy, a vision of Jenna that sent pangs of nostalgia rippling through me. "Please, don't go in," I heard her voice, drowning in the chaos surrounding me. "You'll forget everything," but that was exactly it. The theater had swallowed my memories. A desperate need to save Jenna pushed me forward, through the door into the chaos. With every step, I could feel remnants of my life slipping away, peeling like layers of forgotten skin. And then I saw it, the final vision that gripped my heart like a vice, a scene of my past reenacting. Before me, Jenna laughing, a slip of paper clutched in her hand. "The key to the truth," she whispered, her voice echoing around me. A new horror emerged as I reached out for the slip. It started to dissolve into splinters of darkness, the mural of my memories warping and twisting into grotesque silhouettes, echoing my fears. The shadows morphed into figures of children, their wide eyes hollow, stretching and gaping like black voids. "No!" I shouted as the figures leaned closer, their voices becoming jagged. "What do you want from me?" Instead of answering, they began to chant words twisted into dark incantations that sang of despair and loss. And as I reached out to grasp the slip of paper once more, the darkness coiled tighter around me, a serpent of horror encircling my thoughts. Max. Jenna's voice cut through the chaos. Save us. I felt icy tendrils reaching for my mind, drowning out the longing in Jenna's voice as the figures lunged in unison, clawing their way toward me. Join us, you can never escape. They shrieked, the madness feeding off my panic that I was losing myself, the very fabric of my being threatened to unravel into their abyss. But just as I thought I would give in, a jarring light erupted from behind me. I spun, catching a glimpse of the boy from the stage. Take my hand. He urged, desperation etched into his features, but instinct held me back. The shadows were closing in, furious roars screaming against my ears as I was faced with a burning choice. Would I choose life or surrender to the silent screams of the lost? As I hesitated, every ounce of will left in me screaming against the encroaching darkness, everything snapped like a taut thread, and I was jerked into a blinding void. The next moment, I gasped, standing in the center of the theater again, but everything was off. The air crackled with tension, and I was utterly alone. But I heard it then, the very echo of my own voice, guttering through the silence. Help us! And before I could comprehend the overwhelming dread that pooled under my skin, I realized I was not alone after all. They were all here, watching from the shadows, their hollow gazes fixed on me with sinister anticipation. Would I become one of them, or could I still fight back against this inescapable fate? But just as I turned to make a break for it, a familiar figure materialized into the dim light, the unmistakable call of Jenna breaking through the silence. Max, where are you? And then, in a heartbeat, I found myself spiraling back into the darkness, a pair of watchful eyes tearing into my soul as the world crumbled around me. The darkness enveloped me once more, the air thickening to a point where it felt like I was breathing in tar. My heart thudded in my chest, a desperate beat of urgency echoing in the silence that followed Jenna's voice. The shadows began to twist and morph again, pulling at the edges of reality as if they wished to devour every trace of light that I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, I stood once again in the theater, but this time it felt alive in a way that was horrifyingly palpable. The old, dusty seats shifted, creaking in a disjointed rhythm as though the theater itself was groaning under the weight of its forgotten tragedies. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced in clumsy abandon, igniting my growing unease. Jenna. I called, my voice swallowed by an abyss that echoed my fear back to me. Help. Where are you? My words spiraled off into the deepened silence, and as I stood there, dread coiled inside me tighter. They were watching. I could feel them lurking just beyond sight, those lost souls who had once breathed the air of the living. Just as I started to move through the aisles, a low whisper slithered through the rafters above me. Max, it was soft yet laden with sharp edges that scraped against my mind, a spectral caress that filled me with a chill deep within my bones. Each whisper seemed to twist a knife deeper into my despair. Suddenly, a soft sobbing caught my attention. My breath caught as I turned toward the source, my gut twisting as I spotted a figure hunched over in one of the front row seats. It was cloaked in shadows, but I could see dark hair tumbling over frail shoulders. As I neared, my heart raced. The familiar silhouette ignited a flicker of hope. Tina. I gasped, thinking of Jenna's friend who had disappeared the night of the play. The night my world splintered into nightmares. Gradually, the girl looked up, her face illuminated by the flickering stage lights. But her features were wrong, twisted and haunting, her eyes wide and terrifyingly empty. Max, she breathed out, her voice a chilling rasp. You have to go. They'll take you too. Her expression froze in a moment of agonizing clarity, and I could see the hollowed ache behind her gaze, a reflection of my own haunted dread. What do you mean? Who will take me? A tremor ran through my legs, the hallway of memories choking me in its grip. They don't want you to remember, they want the light, she said, her voice cracking like glass under a weight it could not bear. The shadows around us swirled chaotically, twisting in an intricate dance, feeding on her fear as her breath quickened. Please, tell me, what do you know? I pressed, stepping closer. Tina's mouth opened to speak, but as she did, a howling wave enveloped the room, drowning out her voice. The other figures began to emerge from the darkness, their faces grotesquely familiar. They lunged toward me with desperate hands, whispering my name, voices layered with agony and anticipation. Join us, we want to let you go. My heart pounded furiously against my ribcage, each voice, each face, a raw reminder of something lost. I stumbled backward, colliding with the seat behind me, but I could not escape the growing throng. With every step, I felt the theater's grasp tighten. It was a web spun from despair, pulling me into its dark heart. Max. It's an illusion, it's all a game. Tina's voice cut through the chaos, urgency surging through her words. Fight it. Use the light they fear. I looked wildly around. The once vibrant theater had transformed into a sepulchre of darkness. Panic rose with the gathering shadows, pushing me closer to surrender. My gaze fell upon the stage. The faint glimmer of the footlights gleamed like stars in the abyss. With all the strength left in my body, I lunged toward the stage, the voice of Jenna urging me onward, but as I approached, the children's faces twisted into grotesque masks of rage, their tiny hands reaching hungrily toward me, shadowy figures spilling forth like a tide. You can't escape, Max. They wailed, the chorus rising to an unbearable pitch. My world spun dangerously, a merging of childhood innocence and nightmarish realities. I stumbled onto the stage, and as I did, freezing in place as an icy breath snaked up my spine. Directly before me, a large, decaying mirror hung ominously in the backdrop. In a flash of overwhelming dread, I understood. It was a mirror that reflected not the physical form, but the terrors of the mind, the atrocities that had taken place within these walls. I was drawn to it, compelled to look deeper, but the instant I leaned closer, the theater erupted with menacing laughter. Don't look, Max. It will consume you. Tina shouted, her desperate scream drowning out the laughter. But it was too late. The mirror flickered to life, capturing my gaze, revealing horrible reflections of everything I had ever feared. Jenna's face twisted in agony, taunting me with her silent pleas. Help us. Echoed from within, the words blurring into a relentless cacophony. Before I could wrench my gaze away, the frame shattered, sending shards of glass exploding outward like daggers. I was caught, the shards wrapping around me, slicing into my skin, igniting something dark within my core. As the laughter swelled into a deafening crescendo, a blinding light consumed the stage. Radiating from the shattered mirror, it spread like wildfire, engulfing everything in its path. Panic surged through me as the light twisted and writhed, morphing into a figure, one that looked dangerously familiar. I found myself staring at Jenna, her silhouette bathed in a glow that threatened to claim us both. Max. She cried, reaching toward me, but before I could respond, the overwhelming darkness leaped forth like a furious beast, pulling me back into the depths. The theater shuddered violently, collapsing upon itself, and just like that, I was plunged into the void once more, with only the remnants of her outstretched arm and the chilling sound of her cries reaching me. Max. Her voice faded into a haunting echo, and in that final instant, I was left to wonder if I was losing her forever, or if I was finally uncovering the horror that had ensnared us both. The cliff loomed ominously before me. Would I leap into the darkness to seek the truth, or remain tangled in the theater's web of despair? The answer hung just beyond reach as I fell further into the unknown. The void twisted as I plummeted through a landscape of distorted nightmares, shadows coiling around me like frantic serpents. My heart thundered in my ears, drowning out the remnants of Jenna's desperate call. Just as hope began to dim, I landed hard on a cold, wooden floor. The echoes of my impact reverberated through an impossibly vast silence. I surveyed my surroundings, a sense of dread creeping through my veins. I was no longer in the theater, but in a labyrinth of dark, grainy hallways that stretched infinitely in every direction. The air was thick and stale, heavy with the scent of dampness and rot. Flickering bulbs lined the walls, casting sinister, wavering shadows that darted around corners, suggesting sentient movement just beyond my sight. Paranoia clawed at the edges of my reason. Jenna. I called out again, my voice echoing like a plea lost in the empty maze. I pressed on, each step swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere, as if the darkness conspired to suffocate all sound. As I ventured deeper, the walls around me began to whisper. Faint, ghostly sounds wove around me like a tapestry of mournful memories, the anguished voices of those who had vanished before. Help us, remember us, they lamented in hushed tones, reverberating with a chilling urgency. I shuddered, the words rolled over me, amplifying my fear while drawing forth something buried deep within. Moving cautiously along a crooked path, I stumbled upon a door, half open and beckoning me with an unnatural allure. Instinct screamed at me to ignore it, yet I grasped the handle, the metal cold and slick beneath my grip. With a deep breath, I pushed it open. Inside, I froze. The room was awash in a soft, flickering glow, with candles arranged in a wide circle on the floor. In the center lay a small, tattered journal, its pages yellowed with age, yet achingly familiar. I edged closer, and with every step, the whispers escalated into frantic cries, desperate and insistent. Read it. Find the truth. I knelt, trembling as I opened the journal and scoured its frayed pages. It was filled with accounts of previous occupants of the theater, testimonies woven with threads of horror and grief. There were cryptic entries detailing visions of shadowy figures and desolate feelings, mentions of a cult that used the theater as a place of inward reflection, delving into consciousness and then descending into madness. One passage chilled me to the bone. The mirror is a portal. It does not merely reflect, it absorbs. Those who gaze too long are lost to its depths, and their spirits become the shadows that haunt the living. My breath quickened at the revelation, and before I could process the weight of it, a thunderous crash echoed behind me. Turning quickly, the door slammed shut, the air suddenly swirling with violent energy. The candles flickered wildly, casting unsettling shapes across the walls. I could feel them, the lost souls made corporeal, rushing toward me in a mist of anguish, their faces twisted in eternal torment. Their whispers morphed into screams, an unbearable cacophony that rocked the very foundations of the room. Join us in the dark. They wailed, their voices layering upon one another, a chorus of grief that threatened to consume me. Panic surged through my veins as I fumbled to get back to the door, but it held firm against my attempts to escape. Just as the shadows closed in around me, enveloping me in the scent of decay, I caught the reflection of the candlelight flickering against something glimmering in the corner of the room. A small shard of mirror, untouched and pristine, lay nestled among the scattered remnants of the journal. My heart raced. The same mirror that I had seen on the stage, the connection snapping back into place. With desperation, I grasped the shard. In doing so, I felt a rush of energy burst forward, almost pulling me into its depths. I brought it closer, peering into the fragmented reflection. Images poured forth, brief flashes of Jenna, of the theater, and of terror that gripped the souls of those lost. But then, the images twisted. Darkly, revealing familiar faces I knew all too well, relatives, friends, all wearing expressions of sheer fear, trapped and watching. Just as clarity began to emerge, the room lurched violently, the shadows combing through my thoughts, spiraling around me with an insatiable hunger. I could almost hear Jenna scream my name again, but it faded beneath the screams of the shadows, calling me to join their ranks. And then, in the midst of the chaos, an ominous figure emerged from the haze, tall and shrouded in a cloak of living shadows. Its voice was a low rumble, drenched in dark promise. You cannot escape what you cannot remember, Max. You will become one of us. Unless I felt the shard tremble in my hand, the uncertainty weighing heavier than ever. Choice uncoiled before me like a hidden trap. The mirror had shown me both salvation and damnation, but now, the inky figure lurked closer, its presence suffocating, casting doubt over my resolve. Unless what? I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible over the growing tumult swelling around me, the voices rising in a morose anticipation of my fate. The entity smiled, a stretch of shadows that should not have existed. Unless you dare to confront the truth, it whispered, and with that, darkness surged forth, ready to welcome me into its embrace. The very walls trembled at the mark of an unspeakable choice that I and that moment. The world shattered into 1,000 pieces, a dizzying precipice of despair, and I stood on the edge, teetering. I realized, with a mixture of dread and clarity, I could either plunge into the darkness or try to emerge once more into the light, but the cost of my choice would be far greater than I could imagine. The weight of silence bore down on me like a suffocating mist, and I felt my heart thundering behind my ribcage, a frantic drum trying to pierce through the oppressive dread. The shadowy figure before me loomed larger, its presence stealing the last remnants of courage clinging to my resolve. I could almost make out its features, but they warped and twisted as if the very air around it conspired to keep its true form hidden. Whispers escalated, merging into a chaotic symphony of lost souls, their cries clawing at the limits of my sanity. Confront the truth, they echoed, urging me, yet each voice carried the bitter hint of an unseen danger, their insistence a trepidation I could not shake. I staggered back, the shard of glass slipping dangerously in my grip. The truth, but what truth? I stammered, desperation blooming within me like a dark flower. It was as if the very act of asking invoked the entity's ire, for its smile widened unsettlingly, revealing a void beyond anything human. Not all truths grant freedom, Max. Some entrap you further, it hissed, and I felt the shadow's desire wrap around me, pulsating with malice. Cold fingers of darkness slithered up my arms, binding me in place. My breath burned as the cries of the trapped souls intensified, merging into a singular, agonized scream that echoed within the confines of the room. You must look deeper, it urged. Everything you've loved is at stake. In that moment, the flickering candles dimmed, throwing the room into deeper obscurity. The air clotted with the taste of sorrow, leaving me gasping for clarity. Every heartbeat thudded painfully in my ears, drowning my rational thoughts in a well of fear. Desperately, I held the mirror shard before me, its surface now a churning pool of distorted reflections. I could feel the urge to dive into its depths as if it were willing me to learn its secrets, yet some primal instinct warned against such a leap. Instead, I winced as figures began to coalesce within the shard, specters twisted into grotesque shapes but undeniably familiar. Friends, the families of those I once cared for, their eyes were wide with terror, their mouths stretched in silent screams. Join them, Max, the entity sang in seduction, its voice smooth and serpentine. It is your choice to make sacrifice your fear and become one with the shadows, or cling to the unbearable truth and suffer its wrath. The visions in the mirror morphed further, culminating in one definitive image, Jenna. She stood in a dimly lit room, a mirrored wall looming behind her, her expression a mix of panic and determination. The moment I recognized her, dread washed over me like ice water, freezing my thoughts. I fought against the bindings of shadow, my voice breaking through the maelstrom. Jenna! What is happening to you? Find me! She screamed, her clarity distinct amid the cacophony, giving my heart a flicker of hope. Max, please! You have to find the mirror in the stage's depths. It holds the truth. Please don't let it consume you. Her desperate plea reverberated deep within me, igniting a fire I thought was long extinguished. I swiped at the shadows trapping me, clawing towards the flickering candlelight, towards the fragmented whispers engendering a newfound resolve. In that moment of clarity, an overwhelming urge thrust the shard upwards with newfound strength into the depths of the abyss where truth lay concealed, but before I could plunge the mirror shard through the shadows, a surge of darkness erupted, overwhelming the candlelight, extinguishing the gentle glow as the room twisted under an unseen force. I stumbled, losing grip on the shard. The entity roared with a cacophonous laughter that reverberated through the walls, furious shadows fracturing against my feeble attempts to push back. Enough! It shouted, and I fell to my knees as it extended its skeletal hand towards me, its movements unnatural, trapping me in a thrall of despair. You will pay for your defiance, Max. The truth always comes at a cost, especially here. The shadows began to coalesce into something tangible. Weaving around me, forming a grotesque depiction of the very theater I had come to unravel. I could see the rows of seats filled with lost souls, every seat a memory, each face twisted in silent terror, merging into a collective wail that ripped through my mind. Remember. The shadows beckoned insistently, their grasp ever tighter, as I felt myself fraying at the edges of consciousness. Just as I saw the gateway of clarity flickering in and out like a dying flame, an unimaginable scream broke through Jenna's scream, raw and terrified, echoing deep from the abyss. With that realization crashing over me, I suddenly understood that I was losing the battle, the truth slipping through my fingers, threatening to consume me whole. As the phantom crowd closed in, the overwhelming presence of that dark figure growing ever closer, I felt something snap within, a realization that if I didn't act now, not only would I be lost, but Jenna would be too. In that final moment of reckoning, I lunged for the rapidly fading shard of glass, but just as I grasped it anew, the room exploded in darkness. The walls warped, twisting around me as a thunderous voice roared, "Choose or face obliteration." A blinding light erupted from the mirror, consumed by the restless shadows, launching me into complete blackness. I could hear the echoes of screams around me, lost in the void. As I braced for the impact with oblivion, a new reality began to take shape, a memory forgotten clawing its way back into consciousness. And then, just as abruptly as it had begun, there was silence, a chilling static hangover that left my breath caught in my throat. Before I could piece together what had just happened, a cold, icicle-like whisper came from nowhere, curling around my ear. "You should have joined us, Max." Then everything fell away as the suffocating darkness solidified, leaving me suspended in a realm where hope flickered faintly like a dying candle. The echoes slowly faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. I floated in a void, disoriented and grasping for memories that felt like ethereal wisps of smoke slipping through my fingers. It was as if time itself had ceased to exist, but something deep inside me still screamed to remember, to cling desperately to who I was. Suddenly, I felt something tugging at my consciousness, something I could not ignore. It called to me with a familiar resonance, like waves lapping at the shore. "Max, you must wake up." It was a voice like a ghostly wisp floating through the darkness. Jenna. Panic ignited a flame in my chest as I thought of her, trapped in this chaos. Without hesitation, I forced myself toward the sound, each ounce of willpower igniting my resolve. Against the suffocating darkness, the outlines of memories began to arrange themselves into a terrifying clarity. The faintest shimmer appeared on the horizon like a candlelight breaking through a storm. I pushed forward, fueled by a desperate need to save her, determined to confront whatever waited just beyond the veil of darkness. As I drew closer, the shimmering glow began to morph, defining into a large ornate mirror, a beautiful reflection that somehow felt wickedly wrong. I could see it now, each distorted image echoed the faces I remembered from before, all trapped and hovering within its depths, their eyes wide with terror as they begged silently for release. Among them, I spotted Jenna, and my heart sank. "Jenna!" I yelled, my voice cracking in desperation. Her pale face illuminated a glimmer of hope as she turned toward me, her eyes pleading. "You don't have to do this, Max. You can't confront what you don't know. Don't fall for the trap. Help me. What have they done to you?" I begged, reaching out toward her as the flickering candlelight cast dark shapes on our broken reflections. I was drawn closer, yearning for the warmth of her presence, but the shadows shifted ominously, a palpable force rising around me. "No. Stay away from the mirror," she screamed, and suddenly, I could feel an immense pressure surround me, the weight of lost souls clawing at my resolve, begging for me to join them. "It's a prison. You'll never escape." The whispers crescendoed, a tempest raging behind me as a resistance took hold, propelling me back into the void, where chaos reigned, but I couldn't relent. "I'm coming for you, Jenna. I will save you." I felt my strength surge, I could almost feel the warmth of her essence guiding me. The moment my fingertips brushed the surface of the glass, I saw it, an image so horrific it seared into my memory. The rush of torment flooded back, roaring through my mind, a once vibrant theater engulfed in flame, darkness swirling, a red curtain drawn back to reveal the chaos of the past. Stories of the children I had encountered, their faces drawn and filled with despair. I could hear them, so many lost souls, caught endlessly within those crimson depths. With a final burst of determination, I plunged my hand through the surface, shattering the barrier between realms. Glass exploded outward, scattering shards of darkness and light as the shadows recoiled. "Max." Her voice rang clear amid the confusion, piercing the haze of uncertainty like a beacon, but at that moment, the darkness struck back. The sinister entity lunged through the mirror, its form coiling around me, lips curling into a grin that sent shivers racing down my spine. "You were meant to be one of them, you know," it hissed in a voice that was simultaneously Jenna's and something far more sinister. "But now, you've awakened a fury you cannot comprehend." The shadows rushed toward me, drowning out Jenna's cries as they closed in around us, their whispers now a furious symphony of agony and hatred. "Join us," they howled, reaching out with skeletal hands, pulling me deeper into despair. "No," I shouted, feeling the weight of my memories collide against the encroaching void. My mind raced, piecing together fragments, the lost children, their whispered pleas, the sacrifices made. I want to be part of this horror. "You can't have me." Courage surged in me, igniting a passion unquenchable. I felt the ground beneath my feet harden, the voices of anguish intertwining with my own very core. Jenna. Fight it. Together, we can break the cycle. As if responding to her name, a surge of golden light ignited at the core of despair, illuminating the impending chaos. It exploded outward where the tendrils of darkness recoiled, and for the briefest moment, Jenna broke free. Her essence danced in the light, wrapping around me like a protective mantle. Max, take my hand. Let us end this. Our fingers interlaced, and a wave of clarity burst forth. The memories of the theater, the darkness, and each soul it had captured surged once more, all converging into a singular truth before me. I could see their faces, Jenna's friends, Tina, the children's shadows trapped in this theater of despair, longing for redemption. But as I thrust my hand deeper into the light, the entity screamed a horrific screech that reverberated through the very fabric of our existence. The light exploded, flooding the theater as the darkness writhed in pain, snapping like smoke in the wind, unraveling the very strands of sorrow that had bound the souls. The mirror shattered, splintered pieces cascading around us, as the screams began to fade, replaced by whispers of gratitude from those awakened. Jenna stood beside me, eyes bright with warmth. Max, she breathed, the darkness melting away as the last echoes dissipated. You did it, we did it. Not yet, I whispered, a gnawing dread pooling at the base of my spine. The cycle, it can still return. The flickering shadows receded, but I felt the pull, an unsettling reminder that witnessing the darkness may infuse me, that remnants of that horror still lingered. As the theater stood empty, I choked back a bitter truth. The darkness could never truly be extinguished. It knew my name, my weaknesses, and it would wait patiently, yearning for my return into the haunting embrace of despair. And for every victory claimed, there would always be a price. I glanced one last time at the remnants of the stage, where specters stood just beyond reach, their hollow gazes holding promises of torment. The theater's breath was but a whisper away. Jenna turned to me, realization dawning in her eyes. What do we do now? We were left standing at the precipice of horror and freedom. I felt the weight of the choice congealing in the air. The shadows of the crowd loomed in my thoughts, forever lingering, pulsing with ominous vitality. We live in the light, but we carry the darkness with us, I murmured, the realization chilling my bones. And in an instant, I knew no matter how far we ran, the theater had carved its mark upon our souls. As the last remnants of shadows dissolved, the final, haunting whisper echoed in the wind, we will wait for you. For in the theater of lost souls, the darkness was never truly defeated, it merely retreated, waiting for the moment to reclaim its own.